All right, this is going to be our introduction to the progressivism unit. We're just going to do a couple slides here to explain what progressivism is, some different types of progressives, some initial goals that they had, which we'll expand on throughout the unit, and some of the strategies that they wanted to use. So this information, there's a couple boxes at the top of page 19 of your binder. This information that we're talking about here, you're going to write down a couple just level 2 definitions and then listen to some of the things that I'm saying and keep those things in mind as you work through a lot of the topics later today. So first of all, when we look at a definition or a word like this, I like to look at the root word. So if we look at the root word of progressivism, the word is progress. And so as we know, progress is moving forward, getting better, improving, and that's what progressivism is all about. So progressives, as people, were people who worked to help society move forward and get better. And specifically, it occurred at this time, the first 20 years of the 20th century, from about 1900 to 1920, because of industrialization. So if you think of all of the massive changes that happened in the United States during the Gilded Age, not all of them were good. Not all of them were good for everybody. So one of the big reasons that progressivism happened when it did was a direct result of industrialization. And we're going to be talking about throughout the unit, throughout these 5 days, we're going to be talking about two different types of progressives: idealists and pragmatists. An idealist is somebody who envisions the perfect outcome to whatever cause they're involved in and is hesitant to accept anything less than that. So if someone were to be advocating for civil rights, they might look at an end goal of being perfect racial harmony in the United States, equality, everybody being treated the same, and they will accept nothing less than that. And there's a lot of noble purpose in that. Certainly, that should be what, from their perspective, from everybody's perspective, that should be what we're driving towards. A pragmatist, on the other hand, the root word of pragmatist is pragmatic, and that's a word that means realistic. So a pragmatist is somebody who is interested in achieving as much as possible, even if it's just incremental gains. So looking at a more a possible, maybe realistic outcome and being willing to accept that. So if somebody is working towards civil rights as a pragmatist, they may look at, what perfect racial harmony may not happen in the United States. There's just too many people that aren't willing to accept that. But there are some things we can do as a country to further the position of minorities in the United States and just make their lives as good as we can while we're here. So while perfect equality may not be possible in people's hearts, we can do things like improve education opportunities for African Americans. We can pass voting rights laws. We can pass anti-lynching laws. We can ban discrimination in public places. There are concrete things that we could do, a pragmatist would say, to make lives better, even if perfect equality can't happen right now. The goal is the same, and here's the important thing to understand between idealists and pragmatists. The goal is the same. The difference lies in what each is willing to accept, that ideal outcome or more realistic outcomes. So as we go through the unit, we're going to be looking at a number of different examples of progressive reform. I want you to keep in mind or try and identify in your head as we're looking at these examples, is this an example of idealism or pragmatism? And I think that's a good way to think of this unit and a lot of things that we talk about throughout the class. What's important to understand about progressives is that they're never one group with one goal, meaning that it's not like all progressives in the country all focused all of their efforts. Excuse me. All right, this is going to sound really choppy because I got interrupted by a phone call, but we can move past it because we are all really smart and can adjust to those things. So again, it's not like all progressives got together and say we're going to focus on this and put all of our efforts onto this one issue for the next 6 months. Okay, solved. Okay, moving on. It was a bunch of different people working on a bunch of different things at the exact same time. Now that can be good because a lot of different issues are getting some attention at the same time. On the other hand, perhaps that is drawing attention away from certain issues, and maybe some aren't getting the depth or the focus of attention that they deserve. So it's a bit of a good news, bad news situation there. But that's the reality of the Gilded Age, or the Progressive Era, rather. There's a number of different areas we'll be looking at throughout the unit. Some big picture goals that progressives wanted to have was improving the conditions of the urban poor. We talked about the tenements and certainly those, and even labor unions. Those areas are in need of a certain amount of focus. Wanting to limit the power of big business, which we know grew even more powerful during the Gilded Age, and a call for honest, responsive government, cleaning up corruption, eliminating the control of political machines, and expanding voting rights to women, especially, is going to be a big focus of the progressive era. So there's just some big picture categories, but we'll be looking more specifically at examples as we go. Last thing here is, how do you get people on your side? How do you get people on board? How do you get people aware? And that is one of the big obstacles that a lot of progressives had to overcome. So the media was a big part of that. And so the term muckrakers refers to journalists who wanted to make people aware of some of these negative aspects of society in order to get them to advocate for the change that they supported. So if you, it's an illustrative term. Muck means, dirt, filth, and it's like if you take a rake to a nicely manicured lawn, um, what looks nice on the outside, when you know, raked up, you bring the dirt and the filth to the surface, and everybody can kind of see it now. And so that's what muckrakers wanted to do. A lot of these aspects of society looked good, but journalists wanted to dig underneath that and show those negative aspects of those areas to the public so that they support reform. So just a couple quick examples. Ida Tarbell wrote on Standard Oil's practice of trying to gain a monopoly for themselves, and that led to anti-monopoly laws because of public support then for anti-monopoly laws. Jacob Riis took pictures of slums and used photography to do that. He could write a story about what it was like to live in tenements, but he used photography. People in the middle class or the upper class would never have been exposed to the conditions in tenements. They never go down there and see it with their own eyes. So photography, he told this story through pictures, and got a lot of public support on that. And author named Upton Sinclair wrote a book called The Jungle that was about his experiences in a meatpacking facility in Chicago, and um, disgusted a lot of people. There are rats running around. There's people getting their fingers and their arms cut off, and that ending up in the meat, and really gross stuff. And people were disgusted. And President Roosevelt read that book, and it led directly to the Pure Food and Drug Act of 1906 and the Meat Inspection Act of 1907. So you can draw a straight line there from the muckraker to the law, which is the whole reason. So those are just I meant for that to be quick. It turned out to be a fairly lengthy introduction, but keep these topics, keep these terms in mind as you look through the rest of the examples today, and then on and through the rest of the unit. What a progressive is and what they want, idealists and pragmatists, and then examples of muckrakers, as these people work to affect change in their country.